Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the My Dead Dragon podcast. I am your host, Katherine Larange, and I just had the most amazing conversation with our guest today. I guested on her podcast, and I can't wait to share that with you when it comes out. We had so much fun. And so I am absolutely thrilled to be continuing this conversation. And my guest is Sue Wilhite. Sue, after reaching the top of her profession in 6 years, had to endure a health issue in the form of an ulcer. And she realized that these types of illnesses are common in the corporate world, and especially in successful women because of their high pressure careers and responsibilities. She became aware that successful women feel stalled and frustrated with their careers because of emotional residues that are holding them back. And Sue has made it her life mission to make sure successful people get off their butt. Oh my God, love that. And is now an international #1 best-selling author, award-winning show host, a law of attraction coach, and a certified biofield tuning practitioner. And Sue, I am so thrilled to have you as a guest. I'm super excited to hear your story. And so welcome to the show. And can you start us off by sharing your story? How did you come to realize that you had the choice, because it's a choice, to become the main character and heroine of your own journey?
Well, first of all, Katherine, I'm going to say thank you for having me on the show. And when I reached out to you and said, oh my God, we're both Joseph Campbell nerds, we need to talk, I was so thrilled to find another female podcaster talking about the hero's journey. So this is so cool. I love it. And I love the work that you're doing. So my parents told the story that when I was about 3 or 4, they took me, I was born and raised in San Francisco, California. And they took me to a place called the Palace of the Legion of Honor, which at the time, at that point, was an art gallery. And they were bringing me to some art exhibit, but it was the Palace of the Legion of Honor. And I walked up to the palace guard, the security guy who was sitting there at the door, and I said, thank you for taking care of my palace. And he said, it's my honor, princess. And I knew at that point that I was the center of the universe. And I was I was the princess. This is my palace. You were just taking care of it for me. I was pretty clear about that. Now, life events kind of conspired later to push that down and make it not quite so obvious to me that I was the hero. And we'll fast forward quite a bit, actually, to when I was, I had a career in IT, in information systems. I had graduated UC Davis with a degree in comparative literature. And spring quarter, my senior year, I discovered programming and lit up my life. I became a programmer. After I graduated, I took all these programming classes, and I was really, really good at it. And so in 6 years, I went from stuffing reports into cubicle boxes to being IT manager of a multi-million-dollar company, because I was really good at it. The thing that made me really good at it is because I liked people. And I was very customer focused. I really wanted to make it so my customers, the people in the companies that I worked for, could get their jobs done better and faster so that they could have a life.
All hail the IT people who do that. I just have to say, oh my God, so appreciated.
In fact, people tried to poach me if they left the companies that I was working at, they'd try to poach me for their company because they wanted to have that resource, which is how I got a couple of my jobs, including the IT manager one. And so I was under a lot of pressure that I put on myself to make things work out for people to have the best possible service. And as you read in my intro, I ended up with an ulcer. That sucks. Don't do that. Please. Ulcers were horrible. I felt like I had a volcano going off in my gut all the time. And I wanted to do anything I could to get rid of it. And I wasn't a big drug person. I'd watched my mom be on several different medications, and this was just not like, you know what, I'm not going down that road. But here was this ulcer, and I had to take medicine. I had to take this medicine every 12 hours or the volcano went off. And one day a friend of mine twisted my arm and persuaded me to go to a hypnotherapy demo. And I thought that this was utter BS. My experience of hypnotherapy was, bless her heart, Pat Collins, the hypnotist, yes, or occasionally HBO, with these hypnosis shows for entertainment. And this was my only perception of it. And so I was like, I don't want to cluck like a chicken. I don't want to do this. And she got me in there, and the gentleman who was doing the demo said, has anybody got, anything they want worked on? And I said, yeah, I've got an ulcer. Because at that point it was like, he's going to fail and it's not going to make any difference whatsoever, right? I'm just going to prove that this guy is going to fail spectacularly with me. And an hour and a half later, I didn't have an ulcer.
Wow.
He demonstrated several techniques. And I don't know which of the ones was the one that was the deciding factor, or all of them in combination. It worked. No more ulcer. No ulcer to this day. That was in 1993.
Wow.
And I went, he's got something. I want that. And I realized that was one of those magic moments of, I'm going to turn my entire career around. I need to do this. I can't abandon my job. All of these people are depending on me. How can I make this happen? This is where my programming brain came in.
The logic.
The logic. So I actually worked out a plan where I went and researched hypnotherapy schools and found a school and went to my boss and I said, I'm giving you 18 months notice. I'm going to spend a year with these folks getting training. I am going to get trained on everything that I can. I already understand business because I've been doing it from the inside out. I have been developing programs for people in all departments, in finance, in accounting, in marketing, in sales, in everything. I already know what this is about. So I spent a year doing the training and then some. And then I spent 6 months building my practice. And then I left to their great surprise.
You're like, I told you it was going to happen.
Told you I was going. And they hadn't replaced me because they didn't believe that at the end I would actually go. Because of my customer-focused, my customer-centric philosophy. They were like, no, she can't leave. She's never going to leave. She's got loyalty, to the bone. I'm like, yeah, I've got loyalty to all these folks out here who need more than just a program. just a report. And so that was when, that to me was like one of the hugest decisions in my life, was to just walk away from a 6-figure career and build it up somewhere else. And so I gathered allies and mentors. I went and joined the local Chamber of Commerce and joined all the networking groups that I could, because I wanted to learn and I wanted to absorb and I wanted to get as much help as I could building this practice.
Wow, Sue, that is so interesting. Such a fascinating story. And there's a couple things that kind of stood out for me, and I want to kind of like stretch them out a little bit. So the first one that really was like, oh, that's interesting, is that young girl at the art gallery, and she equated being a princess means being a hero. So tell me kind of, because that, and the reason I'm curious about this is because I think for a lot of people, there's this idea or this perception that the princess, you're just going to like sit around and wait for this like Prince Charming and you're going to have this happily ever after, right? You're like this kind of like, you're just an adornment, right? That the purpose is to wait for this prince to show up and then that's it. So what was it? How was it that for you, the princess equated to being the hero?
My parents were big readers, and I was reading at a very, very early age. And in order to keep up with my voracious reading habit, even at that age, my parents gave me a complete set of Andrew Lang's fairy books. Andrew Lang wrote, I think, 8 or 9 colored fairy books. There was the blue fairy book, the red fairy book, the green fairy book, the brown fairy book, the yellow fairy book. He collected fairy tales from all over the world. And by all over the world, I mean, Native American, South American, Asian, Japan, China, Korea, Africa, every country in Africa, all the European varieties, Arabia, all of the stories. And so the princess was not always the goal. Sometimes the princess was the hero. And they were the ones that actually mostly weren't the stupid ones. I hate to say, something would happen. Let's do Cupid and Psyche, which is somewhat more known. So Psyche, had somebody fall in love with her, had Cupid fall in love with her. She did do something stupid, where she tried to look at Cupid in the light, and then he left. But then she had to endure her mother-in-law's stuff of jealousy and, not wanting a daughter-in-law in the first place. But she persevered. She had to accept help. She had to do the tasks. She had to show up in a way that was very powerful and saying, okay, you set me these tasks. This is what I need to do in order to get what I want. That's what I'm going to do.
I love that. And I love that determination, right? That this is what I want. And I think, so often we buy into an idea of what we want. So we already have that determination. We have that focus. We have those skills, but the what, right, that we're focusing on maybe isn't what's really it for us. So for you, it was that IT job, helping people, serving people, and it gave you an ulcer. Like it literally, right? Your body's like, hey, something's going on here. Listen to me. And that ultimately brought you to that kind of like, the heavens opening up moment where you're like, this is what I'm here to do.
Yes, it was taking it to another level. And in the story of Cupid and Psyche, she accepted help Right? The tasks that were put in front of her were impossible for a human being by themselves to do. And in every case, there was someone or something that helped her. And my favorite was also a lesson that was kind of worked in there. Is the lesson was, don't piss off the wrong people. One of Psyche's tasks was to get Persephone's night cream. And Persephone was the daughter of Ceres, who was the goddess of nature. And she had been kidnapped by Hades, who was the god of the underworld, and taken into the underworld. And so she spent 6 months with him and 6 months with her mother. The reason Hades captured her was because Aphrodite had slipped him a potion. And so although Persephone came to, an accommodation with her husband, she was not happy with Aphrodite. And so when Psyche showed up and said, I'm supposed to ask you for your night cream, my mother-in-law is trying to do this, Persephone was like, I got you, girl. I'm going to get that woman, that goddess. And here's your night cream. You're escorted out. Whereas Aphrodite thought that this was a death sentence, a literal death sentence.
Yeah.
So don't off the wrong people.
Yeah. And so, Sue, do you think that at the human, so the role of, guides, mentors, allies, coaches, supporters, and you and I had this conversation on your podcast about this human journey, really, it's a growth journey. We're here to grow and evolve, and that's a belief that I have. And so do you think, or what are your thoughts on the idea or the concept that we're actually not supposed to be able to do it by ourselves?
So many ideas came in.
Like, where do I start with this?
They only got the one mouth. Got to get it out that way. So one of the things that we talked about sort of in between podcasts was we are all one. We are all we are all, I call it, we are all drops of the divine. And combined, we make something bigger. And so I don't think human beings can be isolated. And it doesn't work to be isolated, to be alone, to not ask for help, because there's that lovely greeting, namaste, which is the goddess, the divine, the God, the universe within me acknowledges and accepts and celebrates the divine within you. If everybody went around with that in their heads and said, oh, this is another divine being.
Yeah.
Let's get together and do something.
Yeah. And their hearts too, right? Because I think there's a difference between kind of cognitively, mentally knowing it, but actually like embodying that knowledge. Yes.
And it makes it so much easier to reach out for help when it's, so if you wanted to pick up your coffee mug, would you ask your hand to please pick up the coffee mug and feel bad for asking? Not usually.
Picking it up right now. There it is. It's decaf now.
It's the same concept. We're all one. Ask for help. And don't be embarrassed by it.
Yeah.
Don't be shamed by it. I don't care what your gender is or what your upbringing is. Ask for help. Look at all of the cooperative societies that succeed.
What would you say to people who maybe have asked for help and it hasn't shown up in the way that they thought it was going to show up?
Ooh, that's a complicated one.
That is I know.
Yeah. Okay. I think there are 3 answers to that. One is we have our conscious mind and our subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
And we ask for help with our conscious mind and say, help me. But there's the subconscious mind that's putting out a conflicting signal that says, I can't ask for help. Nobody will help me. Every time I ask for help, it's screwed. Fill in the blanks of
I don't
whatever
deserve it. Yeah.
I don't deserve it.
Super common one.
Those things.
Yeah.
You're consciously saying, please help. And unconsciously going, don't even.
I'm not open to receiving.
I'm not open to receiving. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Or if it does happen, it's going to screw up.
Yeah. Or if it does happen, I'm going to pick apart, right? Because the reticular activating system portion of our brain is trying to find evidence to support the belief that you can't trust help or get help or want help. So,
Yep. Reason number 2, we're supposed to do it ourselves. Sometimes. So here's going back to kind of nature examples. If a butterfly or a moth is trying to escape the chrysalis and you open the chrysalis, that being will never fly. So sometimes help is not what is needed. And sometimes you have to do it yourself because that's the only way. It's like resistance builds muscle, right?
Yeah.
Only way that you can make that happen.
So would help in that case. So how do you know the difference between the two? And then might help in that case just look like someone encouraging you, saying you can do it. You've got this. I believe in you. Right.
Yes, that would be the best possible help. Or to say, all right, there's a couple of ways that you could do this, and here are some strategies for accomplishing this. Check it out. You know, if any of the parents out there know that you cannot help your child to walk, right? They got to do it. They got to be the ones getting off their butt and toddling around and sitting down hard, getting up again and going. And I've done my share of, giving my finger to toddlers and helping them, walk around. Yeah. They let go as soon as they possibly can. They are not holding on. And
I love that example, Sue, because you talk about the but, right? And so where are we? And for ourselves right now, when you're listening, thinking, noticing, oh, is this a but moment where I'm actually like on my butt like a toddler and I need to do it myself? And yes, there can be those people, those supporters, those encouragers, but nobody can make that choice for you to get up and learn how to walk.
Right. It's not going to happen. You don't need to wait for permission. Right. That was actually a formative moment in my own life. Speaking of asking for help, when I was learning to walk, I had a recovered memory in a meditation. It wasn't somebody who was guiding me to this particular point. It just like flashed into my brain of I was learning to walk and my mom let go of my hand. She was sitting on the couch. And I walked across the room and I turned around and, did a kind of I walked. And my mother was looking at me with this grief and shock in her eyes because I was no longer dependent upon her. And that was a formative moment in my life that sometimes doing these things means that you're going to disappoint people.
Yeah.
And it's just the way it is.
Yeah. And how do you develop the courage to live with that? Or to take the step anyway?
Yeah, because we are all on our own path. We are all on our own path. And I'm kind of getting into child rearing here. My theory is child rearing. You don't own your children. Mm-hmm. You are guides for your children. You are not the owners of your children.
Yeah.
You are the mentors. You are the counselors, but you don't own them.
That kind of applies to partners and spouses
right?
as well. Yeah, and friends and
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. We have this structure in English that says my, which implies, you got your little hooks in them. But really, it's got to be a reciprocal relationship.
And if you come back to the concept of the namaste, which is where the divine in me sees and honors and recognizes the divine in you, and knowing that it's actually all working out, like it's all okay, and that at the level of the spiritual experience, everything is fine, right? And when we're kind of relating with each other, with ourselves at this human experience, it can feel not fine. And we can kind of get those hooks in, and we can kind of, feel we need to overcompensate or help or support or be responsible for. But if we can start to notice that in ourselves and really, kind of come back to center. Mm-hmm. And if we all just really allowed ourselves to ask, what would I love for this life? And if each person was doing that, and we were supporting and encouraging and honoring the divinity in each other, oh my gosh, what a world this would be.
What would a world be? Wow. Wouldn't that be cool? Mm-hmm. And so many communes start out with that principle. And if people within the communes haven't worked out their stuff, then all of that stuff comes out.
Yeah. And some of that stuff can only come out in the context of relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And that was actually the third one is, there's stuff to work out in the relationship between you and who you asked for help.
And so how did you, or where are you at with that? You talked about this ulcer, and I'm putting my language here, so let me know if this doesn't resonate for you, but being a reflection almost of that pressure that you felt to please people. So how have you navigated that pattern, and where are you at with it now, and what were maybe some of the steps or learnings that you had along that process?
I get to relearn it all the time. I get to do it all the time. It's one of those that it's always present. It's always present. There's a piece of me that knows that my purpose on the planet is to help people realize their power, their beingness, their divine being. And if I could just figure something out to open that up, to get them to realize, I know that I'm not the one to realize it for them. Yeah. I really get that. I've always gotten that. But if there's something that I can trigger, that I can have that would just, blow their minds. Yeah. So that they can get it. Oh, that is so cool. And so I will do a lot to help with that. And so since 95, when I quit my job, all the way up through today, I have experimented or experienced just about every technique on the planet. And some of that was because for a few years, I was the event manager for the largest New Age bookstore in Northern California. And I was booking over 300 events a year. Wow. We had everybody come through our door.
I bet.
Every technique there was. And if they wanted to provide sessions for our customers, I got to vet them. Ooh. A little perk of my job.
Yeah.
So you name the technique, I've probably experienced it one way or another. reconnection, quantum healing, Reiki. I was a Reiki master, hypnotherapy, NLP, EFT, all kinds of different methods that you've probably never heard of. And what I've come to is the biofield tuning, which is a sound healing technique that uses the electromagnetic frequencies that we're putting out there and allowing the ones that no longer serve us, that are causing distortions, to be released and have that energy go back into the system so that you can be more powerful.
So how does, is that a thing you do in person, or how does that work?
Up until 2020, I was doing it in person. And up until a little before 2020, my teacher, the person who created this protocol, Eileen McCusick, she believed that you must do it in person. And toward the end of 2019, one of her students said, okay, Eileen, you are a big fan of the scientific method. You need to prove things. You keep saying you can't do this remotely. And with the next breath, you talk about everything being vibration and everybody is connected. Can we test this? And so they did. And over the process of the progress of 6 months, they tested it remotely within their town, and then across the country, and then to England, and then to Australia, and proved that pretty much distance doesn't matter. It works. Yeah. And so in 2020, when I was taking February of 2020, I was taking my advanced biofield tuning, and she said, we have pretty much proved that you can do this remotely. So go experiment. And a month later,
how perfect was that? Oh my goodness. Wow. That's so cool.
So since March of 2020, I've been doing biofield tunings remotely, and it works just fine, and people get powerful healings. And I love it because you don't need to know what it is.
Yes, right. You don't have to get bogged down in the kind of digging into it. Everything is energy. Everything's energy, and you can actually repattern, release things without having to unpack them. Yes.
And it's the famous quote from Louise Hay, it's just a thought, and a thought can be changed. And I love this, that this is the practical application of not having to do affirmations for 21 or 30 days. You can do it that way. You can still, you can absolutely do it. But you have to know what affirmation to do, right? You have to know what your thing is. Tapping, the same thing. You need to know what it is that you're tapping for to be fully effective, right? Hypnotherapy, same thing. Gatekeeper, oh my goodness. If you're going down the wrong path, the gatekeeper is laughing at you.
So what's one of the coolest things you've seen happen through the tuning?
Oh, there's two that I love to boast about that I just absolutely adore. So one of them was one of my early tuning experiences. A woman came in. She was experiencing a lot of stress in her life. She had 3 kids. 2 of them were in their teens. One was just about to be in their teens. There was a lot of chaos in the household between her and her husband. She was starting her own Reiki practice. There was just tons of things going on. And so we were going to do stress. So lay her down on the table, do the tuning, everything is good. She gets up off the table and she starts walking across the room and she goes, I can walk. I was a little confused by this because she'd walked up the stairs to my office, walked just fine. I'd seen her walk before. And she said, no, you don't understand. When my 3rd child was born, 16 years before, I was running a daycare center for toddlers, for babies. And I was carrying babies on my hips, my own and other people's, all day long. And for those of you who don't know how women bodies work, she was pregnant with her third one, and during the second and third trimester, the cartilage loosens up and the pelvis opens up, and it became permanently open.
Oh, wow.
It didn't go back into place because she had stressed that cartilage so much.
Wow.
So she was going to a chiropractor like every 2 weeks to kind of put everything back together. It spontaneously went back together. She had one more visit to the chiropractor.
Wow. That's so cool. That
was not what we were looking for.
Yeah.
Right? I had no idea she had this.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite one. My second favorite is the guy who came in and said, I don't believe in this, but somebody told me I needed to do this. And my job sucks. He was an office manager at a clinic, and he was making $65K a year, and he hated doing this detail stuff. And he had trained to have something better, and he'd just been struggling with it for a year and a half, and he had not been able to do it. He was like, I don't think this is going to work. And I went, oh, I've heard that story before.
Yeah. You're like, wait a minute, that was my story at one point.
Yeah. So I did biofield tuning, and about a month later, he let me know that he'd gotten another job that pushed him to about $95K a year, where he was the senior administrator for a full clinic. And then he called me and he said, I want to do another session. So we did another session because there were some things going on at work. And he was like, okay, I recognize that there's a reflection going on here, and we need to clear this.
Yeah.
And so we did the biofield tuning. We did all of that. He went away, called me up a month later. He said, well, I just got another job for $130K.
Wow.
So in less than a year, he had more than doubled his salary.
Wow. That's so cool. That's so cool.
From being I don't believe in this is total truth.
Yeah. To like, okay, let's do this again.
Let's do this again. I need to clear this.
Wow. That is so cool. So Sue, how can people connect with you? And I know you have a freebie for my listeners. So can you tell me about those things, please?
Yes. So how do people connect with me? First of all, is you can always go onto my website, which is sweetsoundofsuccess.com. And you can see all about biofield tuning there. And there's also a menu item there that is about my coaching program, which is a combination of coaching and biofield tuning.
Oh, very cool.
So we're doing the coaching, figuring out what your vision is, what do you want to do, and then we're clearing the stuff out of the way. And oh, by the way, the vision changes.
Yeah.
Now that you've cleared this, oh wow, I can see.
Very cool. Very cool.
The gift that I have for you is, we'll go back to Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. And what if you get a call to action? And you're getting that, oh, I want to do that. How can I do that? Well, there's a roughly 2,500-year-old technique that I've condensed and made easier to understand than ancient Latin, working through their verbose descriptions of what's going on. And it's 5 steps to eliminating fear. And this is little f fear, not big F fear. Not when your life is in danger. When your life is in danger, do what you need to do, right? But little f fear is that thing that says, I can't do this, I don't deserve it, nobody will love me, what will people think, all of that stuff. And the funnest part, what my favorite part is, the first step is all about letting that fear run rampant. I love it. You let your fear go and have a party.
Right. Yeah.
What's the worst thing that can happen? Oh my God, nobody will love me. everybody will hate me. I'll have to eat worms. It's awful. And then it goes on from there. And by the end of the process, you're clear. You're clear of the fear. You're clear about what it is, whether it's a yes or a no or something else.
That sounds very cool. I'm going to check that out for sure.
And whatever your call to action is, you do it. And I believe in this method so much. I mean, I have a little 3x5 card.
Oh, wow.
It's right there that I just keep by my desk. It's right there. And whenever an opportunity comes up or a call to action comes up, there we go. I got it.
Nice. And fear is part of the process. Fear is part of the process.
Part of it.
Yeah. We're all gonna experience it on this human journey.
Right. Right. So if you are being presented with, oh my God, Katherine's program is so awesome. But what if transformation looks really awful? Sue's program looks so awesome. But what if it brings up things that I don't really want to deal with?
Yeah.
Do the technique. Do the technique. It's cool.
Love that. And so for my listeners, that will be in the show notes, and I highly recommend you check that out.
Yeah.
And so Sue, any last words for my listeners, or anything that you would have wanted your earlier version of yourself to know in this process? Yes.
And it's really important. No one will value you as much as you do. So get it that you are the hero in your journey. Get it that you are the one, capital T, capital O. You are the one who is worth it. And I honor and acknowledge the divine being in you, so that you may be that divine being for others.
And the world needs your light. Yes. Dear one, the world needs your light.
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Sue. I have so enjoyed our conversation. And to my listeners, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your support of the podcast. And if you're wondering how you can do that, you can give me a rating on Apple Podcasts. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. Those are all in the links. And that helps to get this message out to people who need to hear it. So until next time, remember that you are amazing. You are worthy. You are deserving. And you are absolutely capable of and worthy of creating and living a life that you absolutely love.